Hi everyone, let's deal with the basics for IMG NHS Job Search 2. So we're going to deal with basics 2 for IMGs searching for a job in the NHS. Now, in this talk, I'm going to take you through the necessary portals that you can go to, and get a job in the NHS. And I'm going to talk about the main portals, and also I'm going to talk about the minor portals. So it's important to start with the conversation here. And so what I'm going to talk about is the main portals. Now, remember in my previous lecture, I said the United Kingdom is England, Scotland in the order of size, and Northern Ireland and Wales. Oftentimes, England and Wales tend to have similar sort of administrative approach to a lot of things. So they approach things similarly, England and Wales. So when it comes to job search, England, you tend to need NHS jobs or more recently track jobs. This is for just about any job. Training jobs go through Oriel, as you may be aware, isn't it? Now, with that said, the portal is customizable as well as you can personalize your search through the features. So the very first thing you want to do when you go into the portal, you need to select medical/dental. Those are the jobs that houses jobs for doctors. So you select medical and dental. Then you can customize the search based on grade, based on specialty, based on several other things, based on location, and even based on money and things like that. But the key thing I think you must look for if you're an IMG with each of these jobs, you want to see whether they've stated anything around the certificate of sponsorship, because you will need sponsorship in terms of immigration to come to the country and do the job. So that's important for you to find out early. Now, let's assume like that wasn't stated in the job. Usually there's a named contact who is either a consultant in the field that you're about to be employed or would be someone from HR. So a good thing you want to do is email them and ask them this key question. But roughly, so you ask them this key question and say X, Y, Z. A few times you may want to clarify something about the role, probably before applying, and then you can use this feature. So for Scotland, again, it's similar, but here you have the NHS Recruitment Scotland, again, which is similar to what I've explained in England. And then you have NHS Job Recruit Wales, which again is similar, like you have. And then you have the Health and Care Board Recruit for Northern Ireland, which is similar to the steps I have just explained. So this is the first step. The next key portal that you have to follow is the BMJ careers. And I'm going to go into that in a minute. I just need to wipe this board so that we can have space to write and, talk and things like that. And please do like the channel, subscribe, ask your questions so we can give you the answers you need, to make the right, put in the right application, understand the system, so that you are able to get the best outcome and the best career experience. Yes, this thing is not easy to wipe. I should buy one of the fancy electronic boards, but Let's see. They're quite expensive. The universities I teach for do have some of them, but they're quite nice to use. I think I did one video teaching anatomy on one of them, but this works quite well. It allows me to make these videos, from home. All right, thanks for your patience. We're almost there. All right, so let's look at BMJ careers. Like I said, again, quite big. The BMJ careers is similar to the other ones I've discussed. However, is in addition, it houses international jobs. So if you are looking at jobs in Australia, for instance, in the Middle East, in Canada, in other the British small islands and things like that, it houses those. So it houses the NHS type jobs under hospital jobs. It also houses the international jobs under international jobs, regardless of where they belong. So whether it's a clinical job or it's an academic job, it may fall in here. Then it also houses research jobs. So if you're looking into research, it does house that. And then it houses, other. So BMJ careers is more widespread sort of portal. It houses a decent number of NHS jobs as well. So that's BMJ careers. You may see a few sprinkled NHS jobs on jobs.ac, which mainly houses academic jobs. But when there's a sandwich between clinical and academic, sort of that blend, you may find them there as well. So these are probably the portal that houses the most amount of NHS jobs. But of course, you would find jobs in Indeed, because what Indeed would do is the jobs from this parent portals goes to Indeed. Now you can go directly to the trusts, the NHS Trust website, especially if, for instance, there's a particular area you want to work in a particular hospital. That's also, you can search the current jobs they have and you can apply. So I think this really does sort of fairly exhaustively covers it, but this is not an exhaustive list. Then going further, there are also agencies, which we would get to, really in hard to recruit. But before I get that, I think it's only worthwhile we go through some useful tips, that I've found that make people miss jobs. There are some things you need to do to help yourself not miss opportunity, or also so that you don't have a very lengthy wait before you get into interview stage. And these few tips I would like you to pay close attention to and apply. Now, tip number one is you need to regularly update your CV or profile on the job portal. Why? Now, to go further, I think people need to understand that the CV is a dynamic tool. What do I mean? If you find that there's a particular thing that is missing from your CV, either from a review by someone like myself or from another senior person, a consultant, anywhere, your colleague tells you, oh, I think if you fill this up, it would be useful. Now, what people tend to do, which I don't recommend, is to say, can I rewrite the CV in a way that it marks that gap? Now, if there's a gap in your CV, think about filling it up. Now, an example is if you have teaching gap, there's simple ways to fill this with free, for instance, courses you can do. You can do teaching courses regardless of wherever you are in Nigeria. In Nigeria, you can do the DAE, Doctors as Educators. You can do something in your hospital. You can do something in a university close to you. Again, you can volunteer to teach what? So many students, medical students, nursing students, pharmacy students, returning to school students, and evidence this. That fills the area of your teaching. Why? Again, go ahead, read up something. There are lots of good books on medical education. Read one of them. The ones I tend to recommend is Understanding Medical Education by Tim Samwick. So you understand the basic principles of teaching at undergraduate and postgraduate level, and you try to influence after. There's also Medical Education at a Glance. And of course, we cannot forget the father of probably medical education or assessment, Ronald Haldane. He had written so many books on medical education. Pick up one of them, read. One of the best is The Medical Teacher. You know, again, go for what? OSCE examiner training in your trust. So there's just a lot. So update your profile. If there's a missing gap, for instance, in your skills, you've not done, for instance, life support training, try and do that. If you've not done trauma training and you're applying for roles that have a high amount of trauma in them, try and do that. So that's the first thing you want to do. Now, when you achieve this, update it on the profile so that now, if the same person is reviewing, or even if someone new, it will show that you've made progress. It tells whoever is recruiting, hiring manager, recruiter, or whoever, that this is someone that is open to growth and development. Therefore, this individual will be an excellent addition to our organization. So that's the first thing you want to ensure you create the habit. And I've just shown you on how you do that. It could be, for instance, assisting in surgery. So let's say you are looking to go into surgery, but you're working in a role where there's no surgery. Volunteer for what? In a surgeon's private hospital. Discuss your aim with the surgeon, whoever you're volunteering with. And then what? Take up, for instance, the curriculum for the membership exams of the West African or National Postgraduate College. Look at the things residents are expected to learn. Look at the procedures and try and do some of them. And have a logbook where you can evidence this. Now that's filling a gap in the CV rather than say, I'm going to think how I'm going to marks. Why? Because why that's not a good idea is because the people that would be interviewing you have been in the profession so long, they will find out. All right. So what's the next thing to stay on top of your game? Set up job alerts. Simple to do. Most people ignore it. Set up job alert. They would alert you, and then you'll be among the first to apply. It's helpful because you need to apply to get a job. Also, research, understand the role, understand the trust, understand yourself, so that you are applying to roles like I've said in my previous videos. They are an exceptional fit, an excellent fit, or a very good fit. One of the things that would help you again is updating your CV. The other thing I would add is consider strongly a Royal College qualification. I'll talk on this significantly very soon because the way I'm beginning to understand the market forces is looking at this is becoming more and more important. So consider what the area that you want to be working, One of probably, and all of them are quite dynamic. For instance, if you were to have the MRCP, you can work in internal medicine, clearly, any of the fields. You can even work in pathology. You can work in anesthesia. You can work in ICU. Just see how dynamic this is. Let's say you decide to do the MR Chem. You can work clearly in emergency medicine. You can work in trauma surgery. You can work in a number of the surgery specialties. You can work in internal medicine as well. Let's say you decided to do the MRCPCH. Certainly, you can work in children's care. You can work in children's ICU. You can work in several areas. So, of course, the same thing with the MRCOG. So, consider strongly going forward the Royal College qualification. It does take longer, but it's really, really helpful in terms of being competitive in careers going forward in the NHS. So I think the job alert, that's the second thing you want to consider doing. So not to make this longer, so let me quickly round up with, of course, there are several locum agencies that cater to need. Locum agencies are good in certain areas because why? They have a more direct relationship with you as a job seeker from overseas, and they also have, some of them have really good relationship with the trust, especially in difficult to fill areas. So locum agencies are useful, and some of the very top ones that you should consider. I mean, all of them are really nice. And just for disclosure, I do work regularly with local agencies to support doctors trying to get a role. So I've worked with them formally. So that's a disclosure there. So a number of the ones there, you want to think of patents. Patents is a really nice locum agency to consider, but of course the choice is yours. So patents, you have MedFinder, I think, Medax, um, BDI. This is not an exhaustive list. ID Medical. You have doctorsnet.com. But don't forget LinkedIn. LinkedIn is also a very useful platform to be on. Why? Because a lot of the hiring managers and the recruiters are on LinkedIn. So they look at, your evolution, as a job seeker over time, significantly. Then don't underestimate direct networks. So if you have a friend, friends, I think avoid family members. But if you have friends already working within the UK, they can also network you, you know, within people involved in the hiring process in their trust. So yes, if you're a friend of mine, I may know someone that is looking to fill a role. Why? This is helpful because people networks are just very useful. So I think I've covered this in significant depth. Going forward, I think our next video will be on. So when you get into the shortlisting stage, we'll cover shortlisting. So shortlisting for interview as well as preparing for interview. So the next video would be on shortlisting and preparing for interview. Oftentimes, the NHS doesn't do the multi-stage shortlisting, hopefully, unlike maybe tech companies that are hired that way. So shortlisting tends to be straightforward. So you get an invitation. Usually, if you apply via track job, you get an invitation. It's managed via track jobs, but that's not the only way. So we'll talk about next video on shortlisting for interview. So when you get into the shortlisting stage, then you move into interview. So usually the interview may be one stage or multiple stage. It all depends. But oftentimes, my experience is the NHS tend to do one stage, some other, but it doesn't necessarily mean it will be one stage. So the idea is to get shortlisted for interview, and then the next thing is to try and pass the interview. So I will talk on, when you get from shortlisting to interview and how to pass the interview, which is another thing entirely. Thanks for watching. Do not forget, like the video, subscribe, share with your friends and all of that. We always here to support you. So yes, thanks for watching.